Hello and welcome to Early Childhood Ireland's podcast, which features interviews and discussions on all issues relating to quality in the early years and school-age sector. In our episodes, we have a range of speakers who are leaders in the areas that matter to Early Childhood Ireland members. This podcast series is proudly supported by Aracus Insurance, which offers a comprehensive range of cover at discounted premiums for both business and personal insurance products. So visit www.aracus.ie for more information. I'm Maura Corbett and I work with Early Childhood Ireland. In this series of the podcast, we're looking at some aspects of policy and research. In this episode, we're going to explore some current thinking and research about how children thrive, play and learn, and how in Early Childhood Ireland we support and share this thinking. So my guests today are my colleagues Jacinta Sheerin and Milica Atanackovic, Director and Manager respectively, on our Membership Excellence and Learning team. Jacinta has worked in Early Childhood Ireland for 21 years, and over that time she's worked closely with members, ensuring that they feel the value of membership and building up relationships with our members. And Milica's background in early years is rooted within a passionate interest in creative arts and child participation. She originally studied design communication before moving into ECCE in Australia. She considers training and mentoring as a key element of quality in early learning and care, and she has worked as an educator, service manager and trainer. And she also combines experience from a range of creative disciplines to her work. So thanks for joining me today, both of you. You're really welcome.
Thanks, Maura. Great to be here.
Thank you, Maura. Looking forward to it.
So Milica, I'll come to you first. From your current reading and research, what's coming to the surface in terms of research and action research? And we've had some webinars and so on recently. So, where's the current thinking about how children thrive, play and learn? I mean, there might be three small words, but there's a huge breadth of research and thinking behind those words. So what are you reading and what are you seeing at the moment?
So, I mean, I think more, and you'll probably agree, and Jacinta, you'll probably agree as well, a lot of what we're reading and seeing and hearing is actually, in my view, kind of reinforcing a lot of what we've, long known. And I suppose what I mean by that is a lot of the research of the past is still just as current and really, I suppose, complementary to the research that's coming out and what it's, telling us. And, as an organization, I suppose we've always been, deeply passionate about play and learning through play. And what we're finding with a lot of the research, and I would have written and spoken about it before, but even, Alison Gopnik is, what the research is telling us is really just reinforcing what we've long known, and it's that how critical play is to development, and how really giving children the opportunity to play creates, really flexible, and I think Alison Gopnik even says like sophisticated thinkers, but it's about the type of play. And I think the last number of years, particularly with COVID and, particularly with this, I suppose, in some ways, dependency on the outdoors, that we've really started to reignite a lot of what we've long known. And for me, that's actually sort of the most exciting piece, that it's not necessarily that the current research is telling us something different. What it's actually doing is it's reinforcing a lot of what we've already known. And just, I suppose, how research links, how important, for example, play is for so many areas of a child's, development, from, their social skills and, their language development. So it's a really hard one to wrap up in, but they're the things that I suppose are speaking to me at the moment.
And I think that idea, it's something that I really like, is that re-emerging recognition, that slow, that, that bit that I listened to a video recently from the Frebel Trust, and it reminded me of the podcast that we did with Geraldine French on slow pedagogy. That everything shouldn't and can't be done in a day or a week or a year, that it's, taking time, giving children time to explore and think and figure things out for themselves. And that relational bit, that building relationships. And I think Ashler is particularly strong in that through wellbeing, that, giving that bit of slow pedagogy and the value of time, for me, I think is something that's really important.
Yeah, I absolutely, totally that. I mean, one of my favorite podcasts from is Ger French's one where she speaks around the, relational pedagogy. And I think that's something that, that slowing down, that piece that we're always speaking to and speaking about. I suppose the other thing as well, more sorry, just as you were speaking there, that struck me is, what's been really important over the last number of years, and what we're seeing, hearing a lot more about is really giving children voice, and the importance, I suppose, in our practice in listening to children, and listening to their voice, and I think that's something that's coming out a lot more strongly in our pedagogy and in our approach to working with children. That of course the rights of the child, as long as it, we've, that's existed and that, but now we're really seeing that in practice and what that looks like, and interrogating that more and reflecting more on what that means and what that type of participation actually means, in the day-to-day, in the here and now.
Yeah, I think that is something that has evolved maybe to a different place, that maybe some of the, some of the research and thinking around play is reinforcing what we knew, but some of that work on participation is developing. I was, doing some Sheerin visits there a couple of months ago. And when I was, rereading that component on viewing children as partners, you're right, I was thinking about how that has evolved since Jacinta was launched in 2006, and that our thinking on participation and children as partners is very different. And when we were talking to Laura Lundy kind of this time last year, that was made really clear that, there was a time when children's participation was kind of like, do you want a glass of milk or do you want a glass of water? Where she spoke about a nursery accommodating the fact that her child just didn't want to sleep and didn't spend half an hour trying to make him sleep. They accepted that he wasn't a sleeper and worked with him in a different way, recognizing that his participation at that stage in time didn't involve him sleeping.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Laura Lundy and Anne O'Donnell, they would have spoken about it far more eloquently than I will probably do it justice. But, they would speak a lot to that, exactly that point that, yes, it's about listening to children. That's so important. It's about giving them voice, but it's about giving them voice in that decision-making piece, and even if that decision and the decision-making isn't necessarily what the child wants, that they have still been listened to, that their views have still been taken on board, and then it's discussed with them in an age-appropriate way where they can understand, the reason for the decision making as well. And I think that's why, the work that like Laura Lundy's work, and I suppose also the work of the department where they've developed the framework is so useful, because it's really giving you this model to really, look at as a framework and really look at it, the point you're kind of making, that moving it further, moving it deeper into actually involving the child in that decision making and what that looks like. And it doesn't look like the child saying, we want things this way and that's the way it needs to be. It's actually explaining to them a rationale around, well, why it mightn't be able to be this way, but how how we could accommodate some of those wishes, or how we can work together, and I think that's the deeply respectful piece of it all. And that's the real piece that's really about that sort of child participation that they speak about, and that Laura Lundy's research is really rooted in.
Yeah, and that it's a genuine partnership, that
Yes.
that the child is a partner in the decision, not necessarily leading the decisions on their own in a chaotic way. I know, Millie, you mentioned about children's voices, and I suppose, do you want to say something about the current work you're engaged in with mother tongues?
Oh yeah, I love speaking about mother tongues.
She gets excited now, Maura.
No, do you know what? It's, I think it's, I love speaking about it because mother tongues are such experts in this area. And, for Early Childhood Ireland as an organisation, but for me personally, over the last number of months, I've really not only learned so much, but it's been a really lovely reflective space for me. And, I think part of that is, because I'm half Serbian, yet I don't speak Serbian, and it's something that English was prioritized. So my father is Serbian, but he didn't prioritize speaking Serbian to us as children. And we've spoken about this before, Maura, but it's something that I've always found quite frustrating, and I say it to him all the time, and my siblings would say we find it quite frustrating because, the Serbian part of us is really part of our identities. And because we don't speak the language, it can be frustrating. However, the work with mother tongues has just been so wonderful, because what mother tongues, are trying to do is to really promote linguistically and culturally diverse, educational environments, but also, this is Irish society as a whole. So a lot of that work is really around nurturing, the linguistic diversity that exists within, say, for us as an organisation, within early childhood and education and school age childcare settings, and how just being so aware of that and supporting, the individual needs of children and the cultures that they're coming from, how that is such a deep reflective space to be in, and very contextual, because when you think of our culture, and a setting, you have to be thinking about, well, what's the dominant culture, that exists there, and how do you as an educator, really look at that and look at what's in the best interest of your families and your children. So yeah, I have to say, it's, as Jacinta says, I get very excited talking about it, because it's actually had a real profound kind of even impact on me around, I suppose my own thinking around it, but also what mother tongues, a lot of their work and the resources that we've most recently developed with them. It's really about creating really practical and accessible tools and ways to actually make I suppose all children feel that their linguistic diversity, their culture is really relevant. So I'd really recommend, if people haven't had the opportunity to go and listen to the videos, Francesca, who's recorded them, is so you could just listen to her all day long and you get so much out of them. And I really think it'll really support people to really think deeply about their own setting and their own context, and what that means for not only them, but also, for the children and families.
Yeah, it's such an important, I suppose, again, it's something that has moved in thinking that there might have been a time when you say, like your dad, that part of the integration was that you became as like the country that you were in as possible. Yeah. And that meant it was seen as important to leave behind maybe where you came from, and that we're valuing that so much more now, that it's so important to keep where you came from, and that, children will learn the language of the country they're in much better if they have a fluence in their mother tongue, literally. So it's really totally exciting project.
And also as well, Maura, how that in turn enriches the setting and enriches, society and enriches Irish society, and I think that's something that's so important. And I suppose what mother tongues are reminding us of is that, for parents, they're experts in their mother tongues. That's what they're experts in. So, we have a responsibility to nurture that, and to nurture that with the parent and in turn with the child. And it's something that over the next number of months and through other projects that we're really fortunate to be working with mother tongues with, that we're going to be, further developing and exploring and exploring with our members, which is really important to us as well, because as I was saying, I'm learning and, learning more, and you're only going to continue to learn by listening to others, the experiences of others, and also those challenges, and the positives. And so it's a really exciting space. And, I suppose that's one thing, Jacinta might also want to expand a little bit on, but as an organisation, it's really important to us that we partner with other organisations that not only are sort of experts in what they do, but really align with our mission and our vision and our values as an organisation, which are very much centred on the child, and ensuring that all children have experiences that are meeting their needs and are, very, very respectful of the very diverse needs of all children,
Yeah, absolutely. And Jacinta, that's a thanks, Milica. That's a very nice segue into asking Jacinta. Jacinta, I know you're newly appointed director of a new team, with existing team members, but a new team, Membership Excellence and Learning. So do you want to tell us a little bit about Early Childhood Ireland's new strategic plan and how that plan will support member engagement, enable us to continually learn from members and share that learning back with members?
Yeah, absolutely, Maura, and I'm delighted to be coming into the role at the time of a new strategic plan. It's very exciting for us as an organisation. We've restructured to carry out that strategic plan, always thinking about the vision and our mission as an organisation, and have developed two pillars: the Membership Excellence and Learning, which I head up, and then the Policy Advocacy and Campaigning, which my colleague Francis heads up. That all our work will be guided by the strategic plan going into the future, and that work will be guided by research. The research, is through engagement with members. For sure, that's what we do on a daily basis, want to continue to do, involve our members in the new strategic plan. And eventually, that engagement with members, our ambition is to develop a cohort of educator researchers within our membership as well. So what Millie spoke to, that those educators, members will be researchers in their own right, looking at that child participation within settings, doing research within their own settings, within practice. So it's a very ambitious strategic plan. We're looking forward to working with members through it. And yeah.
So exciting times ahead.
For sure.
Yeah. I think, we have a current series of blogs on action research. And if you haven't seen the blogs, kind of, I'd encourage you when you're listening to kind of maybe have a look back on them, because it's a fairly new concept in Ireland. I know Debbie Mullen and I, when we did our masters in Pengreen a number of years ago, and Debbie has written about this in one of the blogs, that idea of practitioner research was kind of considered quite new here at the time. And but we see now that an awful lot of and Sylvia O'Rourke in her blog talked that bit about action research being something that a lot of the time we're doing every day. We see something, we wonder why that is. We might do a little bit of reading about it. The bit that maybe we don't do as much is the kind of the capturing of it, the writing up. And when you describe action research, a lot of the time people say, oh, well, we do that all the time. We see the block area wasn't working, so we looked at Pinterest or we looked at Instagram and we saw other ways of doing it and we thought about why that mightn't be working. So, we identified the problem, we did the research, we identified something to change, we implemented that and we reviewed that. And sometimes it's just capturing that and I suppose sharing those stories back to feed into other people's research. Isn't that kind of
exactly,
the steps?
Yeah, exactly. I agree, Maura. One of the really important pieces in the new strategic plan is, we'll be definitely looking at the impact and what impact we have on improving the quality experiences for children. So that's a really important piece that we'll be engaging with going forward and engaging with members through that process.
So, Millie, do you want to add anything to your experience of the new strategic plan and what the aims are as we bed it down a bit?
I suppose, echoing what Jacinta is saying, I think it is ambitious. However, it is, very much about every child and, the child and, our strategy really is about having the child at the center of our work. And, the member engagement piece, to us, it's just so important that our work is evidence-based and our members are really crucial to how we work. They're crucial in terms of, supporting us and helping us to, I suppose, identify what the problems are that exist. And as Jacinta speaking to them, what are the results or what's the, the intervention or how do we then, develop, for example, it could be, forms of learning, continuous professional learning programs that, support our members, or it could be that, we engage in, as you're speaking to, further action research. But, I was really struck yesterday, our colleague Liz Cairns, who heads up, the research and data analysis team, and she speaks, a lot about, that really when we talk about quality and we're talking about, what quality for children looks like, I suppose that's what we're really trying to kind of interrogate that. And we're also aware that that is also deeply, I suppose, political and systemic and rooted in what's, going on in politics and society. So as Jacinta was speaking to in relation to, how we've structured now the organisation and how, member excellence and learning and then our policy and advocacy team, it's about really, looking at what those problems are and, where do we need to look at it from a policy perspective, where are we looking at it from a research perspective, and then what are, I suppose, the tools or the resources that need to be developed, as a result. So, we're definitely as an organisation in a exciting time, but there's lots of change within that, which again is exciting, but it just challenges us to really think about what is it that we want for children, and again reminding us of our values and what do we mean by education and care, and so we're kind of in this space of deep sort of research reflection, which is really lovely, but it's also about doing that with our members and learning from our members and really understanding, the barriers and the challenges, so yeah, it's something that, as you can probably tell, it's an exciting, but also it's ambitious as well in terms of what we're trying to do with our work, but that's a good thing,
That's it. It is. It's and it's reassuring that the fundamentals, I suppose, that we promote of the value of play, the value of slow, are kind of unchanging, and the research continues to bear that out. You mentioned Alison Gopnik, Milica, who is just the insights into how into children's brain development that she talks about are just so fascinating. And then, that newer thinking that we encourage and promote around participation, inclusion, that taking all that with us in the new team and the new strategic plan is great. So Jacinta, have you anything to say before we start to wrap up?
Nothing further to add, Maura. Thank you. It's been great chatting. I really appreciate it.
And thank you both very much for your time. It's it's really, I suppose there's a kind of a reassurance in that there isn't a new kid on the block in terms of play, that kid is still there, and we'll continue to promote and advocate for play as the key way in which children learn and develop. And so thank you all very much for listening. Thank you, Milica and Jacinta, for joining me today. And thanks for listening to this episode of Early Childhood Ireland's podcast, which is proudly supported by Aricus Insurance. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, spread the word to your friends and colleagues, and stay tuned for our next episode.